I used to do improv. I was very bad at it and I loved it so much. Those were really fun years of making a fool of myself on improv stages across New York. So, because I am not a great improviser and never was, I'm probably the last person who should be talking about improv and what to learn from it, but I'm going to anyway. So here's what improv can teach us about creative writing. Let's go. There are 3 principles of improv that I want to talk about today. First, the point of improv, which is to involve your audience. You're being spontaneous, right? You're improvising based on an audience ideas. That's the entire purpose. It's not pre-planned or pre-scripted, and the audience gets to play a part. Second is the cardinal rule of improv, which is you don't negate your scene partner. You're supposed to say yes and ... Meaning when you go out on stage, you take whatever your scene partner says as true and then you add something. If they say they're a pig and start oinking, you don't say, no, you're a cow. You let them be a pig and then you add something. You become a farmer or a fence or some mud. And the third principle, also a cardinal rule of improv, is to, quote, play to the top of your intelligence. Okay, we're gonna talk about each of these rules and what we can learn from them to inform your creative writing practice. Let's talk about the first principle, that improv is responsive to an audience. In improv, the performance is in response to an audience suggestion, right? That's literally the definition of it. The audience is intimately involved in crafting the narrative that plays out on the stage in this way. Now, in writing, the same is true, but we don't often realize it. It's more implicit. We may not even recognize that we're picturing a future audience for our work, and whoever we are picturing is shaping what we're writing. Years ago, I told my therapist at the time that I felt afraid that I was writing books that people wouldn't like and that I was embarrassing myself. And when I said this, she asked who I was picturing. I didn't realize it until she asked me this, but I admitted that I was picturing really one particular friend. A kind of judgy friend. And she said, well, okay, what about your other friends and your family? How do you think they will respond to your future books? And I said, oh, well, I think they'll be incredibly supportive and excited for me. You know, they already are, so I think they'll feel fine. And she said something really interesting. She said, I'm curious then why you're spending your time picturing your C team rather than your A team or even your B team. When you find yourself worrying about how your work will be received, you know, whether it's good or not, whether you're gonna be judged, what people are gonna think of you, who are you picturing? Is it your C team or is it your A team? And if it's your C team, maybe those aren't the people you're trying to connect with anyway. I heard a wise friend say recently that whenever she gets rude comments to her posts online, she asks herself, do I want to be like the person who left this comment? Do I admire this person? And the answer is almost always no. No, I do not want to be like the person who leaves a mean, unsolicited comment on a stranger's post online. So the audience you're picturing is informing your work. Make sure it's an audience that you want to be connecting to, because it's shaping your approach whether you realize it or not. Okay, the second cardinal rule of improv that we are learning from is never negate. In other words, say yes and ... to build on what's already there. My favorite writer, George Saunders, describes fiction writing this way. He says it's like throwing up a lot of pins in the air in the first half of the story. And then in the second half of the story, you're just waiting for all of those pins to fall. When you're starting a story, you're like the first person going out onto an improv stage. You're introducing a brand new idea. It's all new because there's nothing there yet. But once you've got something, you don't ditch it and start over. Remember I said if you've gone out and your scene partner says they're a pig, you don't tell them they're not a pig, that they're a cow. You start oinking with them and become another pig. You build on what you already have. And the same is true for writing fiction. There comes a point in a novel draft, somewhere around the halfway point, where you want to stop introducing new tensions and build on the tensions you've already created. This is like saying yes and to your own book. Instead of dropping in a brand new conflict out of nowhere, you know, like a random hurricane hits or there's an alien landing or 2 people get divorced. How can you develop a tension from what you already have here? This will make your story cohesive, and cohesion is what makes it a story and not just a kind of random list of events. Before I get into the third and last lesson we can take from improv for our writing, I have a quick invitation. I have a free private group for writers working on books. And in this group, once a month, I host a live event where I plan out the first third of a novel from scratch. It's super fun. Speaking of improv, it is like improv meets novel writing, and you'll learn by watching and participating. So you can join this event, 30,000 words in 30 minutes, watch Mary plan the first third of a novel from scratch by going to the link below this video. Okay, back to the video. Okay, the third cardinal rule of improv we're going to learn from is to play to the top of your intelligence. I loved this rule from the first time I heard it. Play to the top of your intelligence means don't dumb yourself down. Don't play characters who are dumber than you are. If you don't buy something, neither should the character you're playing. How does this idea of playing to the top of your intelligence apply to writing? Well, so often when I'm working on fiction, I will realize that I've been writing a dilemma for a character, and it's a dilemma that I don't actually buy into. In other words, for me personally, it would not be a dilemma. And when I realize I'm doing this, it's like a slap in the face, because I know that I can't get away with writing a false dilemma, that eventually the truth will come out, whether it's through an editor pointing out that the story lacks a critical depth and pull, or my own sudden boredom with my writing process. It's natural that we do this, by the way, that we run from the real meat of the story. In some ways, I think this is kind of part of the process. But when we play to the top of our intelligence in the writing world, that means that the only dilemmas our characters face are dilemmas that we ourselves can imagine facing. And that's hard to do because that tends to be pretty tender, sensitive stuff. It can mean prodding where we don't usually prod and being open to feeling what, maybe we try not to feel. But it's also how we write in a way that not only transforms our characters, but also transforms us and maybe even the reader. So when you choose a dilemma for your characters, ask, is this something that I would also struggle with? If not, it's probably going to ring false or insincere, because it is. And the good news is that there's an easy solution to this, which is just to be honest, to be real, to play to the top of your own intelligence. And those are the things we can learn from improv for our writing. If you made it this far in the video, I'm guessing that you're writing a book or want to write a book. And if so, I have something for you. A few years ago, I created the 4 notebooks method. It's my process for handwriting a novel across 4 notebooks. This is a strategy to map out your story structure in a way that doesn't lock you into an outline or suck all the fun and freedom out of the writing process. So if you would like to learn this method and get a free digital template for writing your novel across 4 notebooks, just go to the link below this video. To get the template, you just have to apply for my program, the Book Incubator. It's only 2 questions to apply. It takes under 5 minutes, and you'll get the template right away. Whether you join or not, there's no pressure to enroll. Just click below to tell me a little bit about you and your book. I'm excited to hear from you and send the template over your way.